Hello, everyone, and welcome to Snap Take. This is Glazer of Snap Judgments, the official podcast of Marvel Snap Zone. We've got two brand new decks for you today. The first one is similar to a deck from Friday, but we're going to do something different with it. We also have Meta Monday, where we look at both how to play and how to play against a popular deck, in this case, the SheNaut deck. That is the most popular deck from 70 to 100. We've got a Marvel Snap Pro tip and so much more for you today. Let's get started. But first, I'd like to invite you to hit that sub button. We bring you more Marvel Snap content than anyone else in the community. We give you at least 2 to 3 new decks every single weekday. We cover all the news, all the new cards. We give you bundle guides, shop reviews, everything you need to complete your Marvel Snap journey. Supporting us is totally free. We're trying to hit 7,000 subs by the end of the year. We're almost there. Help us out. Hit that sub button, ring that bell, leave a comment, spread the word. We were giving away the Ringing in Your Ears bundle of ourselves and Super Tech God. We are giving this away to Min Nugent. Min won the giveaway, which is wild because I literally did some content on Min's channel yesterday. I even saved the giveaway screen because I thought it was so wild that Min won. Congrats, Min. You got to send me your in-game name so we can get you this bundle, buddy. We also keep an active giveaway sheet that has every giveaway in Marvel Snap on it. It's in the description to this video. This way you can help find some great content, and that great content can help you get some stuff to help your progression in the game. So make sure you check that sheet out. We get nothing out of it. It's just a nice resource for the community. This is the outline for the day. We're not going to go through it. We'll go through it as we go. Um, it's worth knowing that Deired Snap is one of our decks, and Zuns is another of our decks. We'll talk more about that later. We've got a pro tip. We've got a whole section on replacing Darkhawk, which is something that we should all be looking at doing tomorrow, and more. Our first question of the day, these are our Blob questions, because Blob is coming out tomorrow. Joe K wants to know how I feel about Blob and Thanos to counter Dark. So Thanos is one of the easier homes for Blob. The question that we're going to have to answer is which of three Thanos versions Blob fits in. There's three different ones that make sense. Three and a half, I guess. So do we go back to Thanos Lockjaw with Blob? That obviously has the danger of a cheated Blob eating your deck, and then you'd be stuck playing whatever's in hand. Um, Given how much Thanos draws, that doesn't seem like the worst thing in the world, but it is a danger. Like, you get chonged, and all of a sudden the game's over in that case. We could just run a general sort of good stuff Thanos, or you could keep lockdown and just trust that you have so many cards in deck that Blob is going to be big. In either case, I think we want to run a Koye for the extra pump to the deck, because if there's like 5 cards left in deck, that's an extra +5 on the board, right? I definitely think Blob will have a home in that. Snowpoint says Blob in low roll Hella. Samurai can discard it over Hella, or it can just solo a Blob. I like it a lot. I think that's going to be one of the best homes. It's one of the decks we're going to look at tomorrow when we do all of our Blob decks. So again, ring that bell so you don't miss. Jimmy Price says to just heck leech Darkhawk, and then you can keep running Darkhawk. You leech on 5. Blob doesn't actually go off. It's sort of a dead card then, and you should win. I don't think this works. I think the reason that Darkhawk is so powerful is that it maintains this tempo power throughout the game, along with its disruption. If it's giving that up for 3 power on turn 5, I think that Darkhawk sort of falls apart, especially when it's playing other high powered decks. Like if you do that and you unlock an Infinite for Hella decks, or for Hella decks, right? Sorry, for Hella decks or for Black Knight decks, or you unlock a free Red Skull or whatever else. Like, I think that's really, really dangerous. I don't think that that's going to be the answer. And Wizred is curious what decks I'll be looking for without Darkhawk to counter Blob. And that is our segment 2. Between each deck we talk about every day, we have a different segment that talks about a different facet of Marvel Snap. Ours is going to look at this deck that's been taking over the meta. We're going to say, okay, if this can't run the Darkhawk package, what do we do with it? If you'd like a question read out in Wednesday, not tomorrow. Tomorrow is the Blob day. That video for new cards ends up super long. So we're not going to do questions in that video. But if you'd like your questions read out in Wednesday's video, leave one in the comment. Our first deck is Zuns. This is rank 8 double She-Hulk, as in rank 8 on the global frickin' leaderboard. We looked at a deck that's fairly similar to this. It was running Iron Man and Ravonna, basically over Quinjet and She-Hulk in Friday's video. Oh, sorry, and it wasn't running Sunspot, running something else simple over Sunspot. Um, that deck was extremely powerful. It took a bunch of people to infinite over the weekend. You can check comments and see all the different people and all the people in our corner of the Marvel Snap Zone Discord that climbed with it. This version seems to be somehow even more consistent. So if you're trying to climb and hit infinite on the last day before the blob changes the meta, this is an amazing card list to choose. And it also takes out Ravona, which is a Series 4 card that a lot of people don't have yet. So what you basically do is you can do basically you can do Quinjet into Zabu and get like a double Darkhawk Ms. Marvel going at the end of the game, which is obviously extremely powerful. You could also pass turn 5, get a 1-cost She-Hulk, a 0-cost She-Hulk, and just a bunch of other cheap stuff to drop with it. If you end up dropping Darkhawk, Mystique, She-Hulk, probably won that game of Snap, right? There's a lot of ways to do extremely powerful things with this deck. You can even throw a Shadow King in there to mess up a Destroy player's day or this is one of the strongest decks in Snap, bar none. This shell of Moon Girl Darkhawk right now is, I think, the best thing to be doing in Snap. It beats almost everything that I can find in the game, especially if it runs Shadow King or Iron Man. Shadow King pulls the highest stuff down, and Iron Man makes your stuff fly upward. As long as you're running one of those two cards, if you both against it, then this deck is absolutely stellar and one of the powerful things to do in Snap. Try it out. You will not regret it. All right. Replacements. Darkhawk and Zabu are needed for this version of the deck. Ms. Marvel can be Doom or Claw. I had people hit Infinite replacing this Doom. It worked fine. I'm thinking with She-Hulk in the deck, we might want it to be Claw. Because at that point, if you skip 5, you can go Claw for 10 power across 2 lanes. And then 2 She-Hulks as long as you have Quinjet on. That seems really cool to me. Claw also gives you an extra thing for Mystique to copy as turn by turn and snapping. So first thing to know before we get there is Zuns is a free-to-play 14-year-old from Taiwan, and he's ranked 8 in the world. He was ranked in the top 30 last season. Wildly impressive that a 14-year-old guy in the world. So like super props. Check him out on Twitter. The second basically. Um, turn 1 Korg is better than Quinjet unless you already have Moon Girl. Turn 2 Zabu is better than Quinjet and Korg, or Sunspot is better than Widow. Um, Turn 3, Zabu and a 1 is better than Rock Slide, or you can choose to just try and organize your hand, play things out to get things into the right spot so you can Moon Girl. Turn 4 is Moon Girl, and that's generally better than Ms. Marvel, almost no matter what, as long as you can Jet or Zabu out. Turn 5 is Pass if She-Hulk is in hand. She-Hulks are in hand. If not, Moon Girl or Ms. Marvel are both fine. And turn 6 is your hand dump. Quick variant talk. We've got our Peach Momoko She-Hulk along with our Peach Momoko Black Widow here. We've got our Quinjet with the cool little twirly propellers, which I like a lot. We've got a hip Korg, a hip Zabu, and a hip Ms. Marvel here. So we're at a 3 deck. We've got a hip Black Widow somewhere also and a hip Sunspot, but we saved those for different decks today. I really like this Twitch drop Sunspot. We've got the best Shadow King in the game. And the Ms. Marvel Mystique, which I like to run when I'm running. You guessed it, Ms. Marvel. Oh, we also have a double Twitch drop for pairing with Sunspot and Moon Girl. This is my favorite Darkhawk, and we have Rock Paper Scissors slide. Winter variant. Christmas is all right. So I basically kept this core, and I said, if I can't play Darkhawk, what else can I do? So I want to keep some disruption. So I decided Man Thing is probably the next most powerful thing I can do for. So then I want Luke Cage, right? So I add Luke Cage and Man Thing, and now I'm keeping a bunch of 4s. I think this is enough worse that it probably doesn't work anymore. But it's worth examining because Man Thing plus Mr. Fantastic and Moon Girl is bound to be extreme. Sorry, Mr. Fantastic and Ms. Marvel is bound to be. Man Thing can also be copied by Mystique or played in lane with Luke Cage, so his ability is turned off for you, but not the opponents. Luke Cage has extra benefit with a card like Shadow King for certain locations, and of course Sunspot. You still have the double She-Hulk play. You have most of the plays. This is worse, right? Because, well, part of the power of Darkhawk is you have Korg, Rockslide, and Widow, which are all super disruptive cards. This one only really has Iceman as an early disruptive play. Outside of that, it's focused on getting the reduction in power on the board instead of the combo. Although Man Thing is better in the ever, so it's worth trying this. This is one of the first decks. So This might be better. It might not, but this might be better. This is probably the simplest thing. This keeps the disruption and just says, hey, but what if I run Werewolf by Night instead of running Darkhawk? Literally, basically the same deck otherwise, right? But if you've got Werewolf, you should be able to get Werewolf up to basically as big of a power as you would get Darkhawk in most situations. I threw an Iceman in here over what did I throw Iceman over? Over one of the twos. Whatever. I threw a dice over Mystique because now I don't have the ongoing for Mystique to copy, so I am losing that play. But instead, I've got a werewolf which can generally go far taller. I've still got the disruption, and I've got the extra disruption of ice. This seems like a decent home. It's not the best thing. Oh, and I threw a beast in so that I can replay all my disruptive, try and stop the opponent that way. I think this has some legs. I think this might be really good. This is probably better than the man thing, but I'm not sure yet. Next up, we have a Hit Monkey. This is about as different as we get from these. This just says, okay, so from Mysterio, Bishop, Hit Monkey, and Werewolf, I have a ton of power. This is a very different list at this point, but I think this might be a meta list and nonetheless. The biggest problem this deck have is Mysterio plus Bast is completely overpowered, and Mysterio plus She-Hulk is not a combination that works. So I have to choose between She-Hulk and She-Hulk and blah, 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 blah. And Bast here, I decided to go with She-Hulk for the time being. I'm doing a version without She-Hulk, but with Bast and seeing how that feels. My gut feeling is this is going to be an extremely powerful deck that Lockdown and Goliath are going to chase out. Next up, we have Toxic. This should be real good because if you get the double up, toward the end of the game, you should be able to fill a location so that Sentry doesn't really have a downside. I accidentally Darkhawk in this one. That should not be Darkhawk. That should be what should it be? That was supposed to be Werewolf. Excuse me. Um, yeah, this toxic one is supposed to have Werewolf in it, not Dark. My bad. But basically, the idea is you just have you should be able to fill the right location so you don't have to worry about Sentry. If you get the double She-Hulk thing, you can play. If you have Quinjet out, you can play 2 She-Hulks and a Nihilus last turn of the game. Zabu lets you sentry on 3 and Moongirl on 4, or vice versa. You can just ignore that and play Ms. Marvel and be totally fine. I think this is actually where it's at. The Toxic She-Hulk is probably the best. Again, with Werewolf in that Darkhawk spot, even if Werewolf's just triggering 2 times, I think it's an extraordinarily powerful card. This one does not have as much disruption until late game. This trades early game disruption for late game disruption of Hood and Sentry. It's also worth noting that you have Carnage to get rid of that Hood and Sentry, and you have the extra added bonus of blah blah blah. I thought it's gone of Annihilus to take care of any nonsense that should. Next up, we have the to read Attuma Control. This is our deck 2 for the day. So our deck 2 for the day is super freaking cool. This has been dominating in meta right now. That's where it is from. It is really cool. This is right, by the way. It basically says I can lock like it plays like 3 different games with it, right? You can zero Atuma, you can keep Atuma in hand for Dracula, you can Atuma Professor X, Atuma Armor, which is 4, not 3. I promise. Um, any of those are backbreaking, right? Like if you can win a lane, Atuma 410 is great stats, as everyone who's been playing Sentry lately knows. Still got Cosmo and Armor to ruin opponent's day, destroy his one of the top 3 decks. Got Cosmo and Armor for that. Chavez is just a that stick here. Um, Chavez hitting basically anything but Dracula is really good. Chavez hitting Professor X can be backbreaking. You drop Dracula here, and then you say, okay, so I've got Infinite Destroyer, Red Skull in hand. Let's see which of those it hits. And sometimes you're gonna low roll, right? But most of your low rolls are really cheap. Get them out. Um, Quick question, actually, if you guys can reply in the comments. I do replacements for all these cards. You can do that in game now. The game will auto give you replacements. Do you want my replacements or do you want to try the auto one? I don't really care which. Um, I would like to. I wish the autofill would allow me to pretend I don't have certain cards, like it would allow me to live cards as replacements. But since it won't, I can't do it for you, right? I would just be like, all right, so you're missing. I don't. You're missing Red Skull as a series card and Nebula. I should be able to hit autofill and be like, here's what that would tell me. Nebula can be any. Think Iceman. Think like whoever. Pick a good one. And if you're feeling frisky, it could also be. Otherwise, this is all Series 3. So don't stress it. But please, if you have if you have all these cards but not Nebula, I want to know what this deck builder gives you. Press that button for me. Tell me in the comments what it gives you. I'm so curious. I want to know whether the replacement slide is real. All right, so this has been killing it. This is like one of the cooler decks I've seen in a while. That's like a fairly original concept. It's not totally original. It's sort of a combination of both Dracula Dump and the old Attuma ongoing controls we used to see. But it plays like those, right? But it's a new take on it, and it's so turn one is Nebula over Sunspot. Turn two is Armor over America. You're perfectly happy with any of these. Um, if I know I'm not playing Destroy, I tend to play Nebula on turn two over Armor case, but I would play Armor over Sunspot. Sunspot's fine, but turn three is Cosmo or Armor and Zero, and Armor and Zero means you're going to play Attuma next. So you Attuma if you zeroed before, or you're planning on Professor Xing after, or if you have an Armor lane. If not, you can drop Dracula. Turn five is Professor X. If you can, then just lock up a lane. And then turn six is Destroyer, and you can win the lane with Destroyer by playing it on Cosmo, or you can just have a lane won by Professor X, and then that works. Cool. If you did not have the right play of Professor X on turn five, then that tends to be Dracula for me over Red Skull, but it could be either. This is a beaut. Variants go Sunspot hip, Nebula hip, Cosmo hip to see it, Dracula hip, Atuma hip, Red Skull, Destroyer hip, Infinite hip. 7 is a beautiful hips. We've got my Gold Pride Chavez, the really cool armor, my favorite armor in the game. This very nice Zero, which is quite menacing. The brand new Professor X that we just got, or if you've bought the season pass, you get with it. And this reasonably cool bundle Red Skull down with not. Cool. Really, really pretty deck besides Red Skull ruining it. All right. Marvel Snap Pro Tip number 12. Cube value is about balance. How you need to conceptualize cubes to do your best at Marvel Snap is about. If you don't value cubes enough, you'll be careless and make mistakes. You just stay in games you shouldn't. You play cards too fast. You don't think about things. One of the ways you can value cube um too little is an opponent snaps on turn two and not thinking of why. Thinking, is there a location that gave it? Do they just have the exact draw? Do I not have the rank? If you don't value cubes enough, you don't think of any of that. You go, yeah, I want to play this game, and you just stay in. If you value cubes too much, however, you're going to make overly cautious mistakes like not snapping when you're favored. And that makes climbing because you're going to get snapped and you're going to lose a lot of those games if your opponents are. That's why they snapped you in the first place. Which means if you're not snapping because you value your cubes, climbing becomes. Try and keep this balance in mind as you play. Snap when favored, retreat when you need to. Don't get careless or cocky. Careful, but not. It's all about balance. Next up, we have SheNaut. This is the most played deck in all of Marvel Snap from rank 70 to 100, according to Untapped. I like to pull my data on play rates from there because they are the largest of the deck trackers. And this deck is really, really great. I've seen lots of people playing it lately. I saw Toby play it yesterday. It's a beast. It's really, really hard. And the reason it's really, really hard to beat is about twofold. You do a decent job of putting pressure. I guess three. You do a decent job of putting pressure on early because Sunspot Misty get reason, while Cyclops removes the crap out of opponent nonsense. Armor and Cosmo are both powerful enough cards that they like rock some matchups. They really make destroy difficult. They make it difficult for things that are running like Shang-Chi to counter you to do so. Then you've also got the power of Leech, which says anything that load on the last couple turns can't. And then you've got this massively powerful end game where you're basically playing She-Hulk or Hulk or She-Hulk and Infinite on turn 7, and your opponent can. You can also, as a reminder, make that play on turn 6 if you Shocker, She-Hulk, Hulk. Basically, as long as any of those cost one less. You pass turn 5, and then your She-Hulk will cost 1, and then Hulk or will cost 5, and you're all okay. So Evo is the only high series thing here, which is probably a hidden reason this gets played so much. But that also means as long as you have She-Hulk, you can build this deck, right? Sunspot Series 2, Misty Series 1, Armor Series 1 or 2, whatever. The only other Series 3 card here is Magic. So it's Magic and She-Hulk as Series 3 cards, and Harry as a Series 5 card. So this is a very, very easy card deck to target and get to, and it doesn't feel like it's going to be nerfed. In fact, they just buff She-Hulk, right? So this doesn't feel like a deck. This one is better in a big sample than anything else. It's got a super high win rate, a super high cube rate. It is the thing to climb with if you have access to it and you just want to hit infinite with rolls and trouble. This is a straight up winner. So turn 1 is Sunspot or Misty. Armor is turn 2, but if Shocker at She-Hulk or Gravnaut, you can skip Magic, so Shocker then. Unless you know you're playing Destroy. Turn 3, Magic over Cyclops over Cosmo. Um, Matchups again. Turn 4 is the same basic thing as 3, except Cyclops is now my priority unless Cyclops, I guess Magic is still, but Cyclops is real. Turn 5 is almost always Leech, got the Shocker thing. Turn 6 is Pass, and then turn 7 is She-Hulk and Hulk Origin. And you win. You can snap basically as soon as you know that they can't stop your limbo. If they can't stop your limbo and you have the She-Hulk, good. You always, always, always want to snap before, because the second Leech goes down, that snap really likely. But that's how you get 2 cubes at one, and climbing 2 cubes at a time is twice as effective as climbing one. All right, how do you play against this? So first, can you blow up Limbo? If you can blow up Limbo, do it on 5 and get as much of your tempo powerful cards out on 5 as you. This way, Leech will be ineffective, and they have to play like if they have a Hulk, they'll play a Hulk that last turn. They cannot play Infinite if they played Leech. Play a Hulk or She-Hulk, which gives you a reasonable chance of if because you should be able to with your turn plays countering Limbo get enough power out to stop it. 2. Can you go big enough early enough? Stats can make hurt if you have a bunch of extremely powerful early plays. Like this beats the crap out of Destroy, but if you don't see Armor and Cosmo, Destroy can just get so much power on cards like Venom and Deadpool that doesn't matter that like they're leeching away your null later or your death later because you've put so much early power on them. That's hard to do. Destroy is probably not the best example because of how much leech is your late game, but there are numerous powerful decks where if you just drop your power, you should be like if you drop, for example, you were playing Death, well, Darkhawk, you can drop like Darkhawk on 4 and 5, and if you've got like that much power out, you've gotten a couple of rocks in their deck, you've got a reasonable shot at taking the game. And you leave them nowhere to play. This deck needs a lot of base, so you know they're gonna play Leech, gives you like a free Professor X. If they're leeching and you're ahead in the lane, Professor X is going to lock a lane. If you've locked another lane with Storm, then the game is over. But even more than that, you even if you just have that Professor X lane, you know they're going to try and drop a bajillion power in those lanes. You should be able to have priority if you top deck into Eliath, or you have something like Iron Ledge you top into, or you can just play big old cards yourself. Should be. It's worth remembering that your Hulk, have a Hulk and gain power, will keep its power even if. Next up, Invisible Woman is your friend. If they can't Cosmo your Invisible Woman lane, and they don't always have time, Shang and like Shadow King and so on, and that extremely powerful. Also, really, really, really good is Mobius. So, Invisible Woman will let you Shang-Chi something. On turn 4, you can just drop that. On turn 3, if you play Mobius, their She Hulk is effectively off. They have no answer for that, and they're other answered decks. Black Knight and Infinite is really, really strong. Basically, what they're doing, they're giving like your shard, should you have a shard in hand from Black Knight, will maintain its power, right? because it gets the power, but it just will it'll be able to be destroyed or have its power reduced, but they don't run anything that does that, so you're fine. Your Infinite, should you have an Infinite, will just be a 620 that you can play. You're just fine into that matchup. You just have so much big stuff you can actually compete on Axis. And you're not taking that turn off on turn 5 to play basically nothing, so you should be okay. Loki beats the crap out of this largely. Two reasons. Loki can just take your big cards, and if you time it right, the leech part won't absolutely wreck you. Loki can also just, if it can play the, assuming you have Snow Guard, it can play the Snow Guard bird on turn 5, and that's going to turn off Limbo and leave them at a really advantage. At that point, you can drop something big and try and go wide, and you generally. Any junk is also very good because your Annihilus comes out on 5. Again, you know they don't have an answer to that. So if your Annihilus comes out on 5, you can send them a Hood and a Sentry. You're pretty set. If you haven't played Sentry yet, Sentry as a 4/10 with no downside is pretty damn good. You don't really care if your things like your Hood, Demon get hit, for example, and you're just fine with all of these. Giving them a -10 in a really great way to win. They can drop a 20 there, but Infinite is a 10 power card because you gave them a Void is so much less scary than Infinite is a 20. Meanwhile, your Sentry just matches their shield. The other thing that I really like to play against this is if you can get Phoenix going, and it's dangerous if they're good, you're gonna have trouble because of armor and Cosmo. So you're playing the like what lane this in game. But if you can get Phoenix on multiple man going, you don't care what they lead. You put up so much power across the board they can't stop you. I stomped this deck early season with Phoenix fairly regularly. It was a joy. Um you could if they armor your multiple man, then you're stuck playing something like Ghost, killing it that way, but like it ends up working. You also have that extra turn to get out that Phoenix Force. If you get out of Phoenix Force on 5, you still have plenty of turns to move. So that's also really, really. All right, so that's how you play against this deck. That's how you play this deck. It is the most popular deck in all of Marvel Snap currently. It's really good. So play it, but know how to play against it because 70 to 100, you're going to be. Finally, we have our variants of it. I just bought the Hip Tribunal yesterday, so I'm not buying GB Tribunals. I would better one. I like this Taskmaster a lot, but I have the two Taskmasters you can see on the right of your screen, the Luchador and then the just cool looking mask one. I like them both. I play them in different decks. And there's a hip one that's coming at some point, which I will buy hip. Um, Polaris is one of the last 6-ish, 8-ish cards in the game that I don't have a good variant for. I have a Pixel for Polaris. There's very few Polarises. But December 19th or so, this really cool Polaris is coming. So I'm just gonna buy the Rian Gonzalez Polaris. I have the Game Boy and the hip for Zola. I have the hip for Dakin. I have a Darkhawk you saw earlier. I have another Darkhawk. You saw 3 different sunspots today, so sunspot. Even though I have 3 Shang, bought this just now I have 4. It's just I've always kind of wanted. Now I have every Shang-Chi I want. I'm gonna give them all gold backgrounds and just Shang-Chi at some point. That also filled up the collection track thingy. And when I opened my variant, I got this really cool Noir White Queen, and that I'm not at all sad to have. So pretty damn cool. I'm very happy with the variants. Things are good. There we are. That's today's video. Thanks so much for watching. If you or please ring that bell, hit that sub button, leave us a comment, and show some love. We'll be back tomorrow with all of our blob takes. See you then.